The house was quiet. Too quiet. Even Elijah's tiny breaths felt loud in the stillness. I sat at Gina's kitchen table with that photo in front of me, the porch light casting long shadows across the floor. My fingers had gone numb, but I couldn't stop staring at it. Me, maybe 6 years old, in a red jumper, grinning like I didn't have a care in the world. That was already strange enough. I hadn't seen this photo before. Ever. But the man beside me? That's what chilled me. He had his arm around my shoulder like it belonged there. Like we were family. But I couldn't place his face, not fully. It stirred something in my memory like a half-remembered dream. His smile was soft. Protective. I flipped it over again and read the scrawled handwriting for the 5th time. Ask her about him. Before she disappears too. I didn't need to ask who her was. They meant my mother. Of course they did. But that was the problem. I couldn't ask her. Not after everything. Not after what she did. Gina came in a little after 1 a.m. smelling like night air and coffee. She looked tired but stopped cold when she saw me hunched at the table. "Hey," she said, setting her keys down. "You okay?" I held the photo up, still stunned. "This was left at your door." She walked over, brow furrowed, and took a long look. "That's you?" she asked. "Yeah. And that man? I don't know who he is." She sat across from me, quiet for a moment. "Who do you think left it?" "No idea," I said. But whoever it was knew where to find me. That part unsettled both of us. "You think it's someone from your past?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "I just don't know who. The thing is, I never really knew my father. Growing up, Mama barely said a word about him. I only ever got fragments. He wasn't built to stay, or, you got his eyes, unfortunately. Whenever I pressed, she'd shut down or get mean. Eventually I learned not to ask. But this photo cracked something open. That man, the way he looked at little me, the way I was smiling like I felt safe beside him, that wasn't just some guy passing through. That meant something." Gina leaned forward. "Do you think it's your dad?" Maybe," I said. "But I don't remember him." "Not really." She reached for her phone. "You want me to help you search? We could try online records, social media, even reverse search the address on the back." I froze. She hadn't seen it yet. I flipped the photo again and handed it to her. Her eyes scanned the writing. Then they narrowed. "That's not just a message," she said. "That's a warning." Suddenly the room felt colder. "Before she disappears too." The words echoed in my mind. Whoever wrote that knew something. Knew about my mother. Maybe even about what she did to me. To Elijah. And now what? They were trying to send a message? Or a threat? Or both? I stood up, my skin buzzing. I need to figure out who this man is. Even if I don't find him, I need to know. Because if someone's reaching out now after all this time, that means my past isn't as buried as I thought. Gina nodded. "I'll help however I can. But be careful, Sarah. If someone's watching you, they could still be close." I swallowed hard. The storm outside had passed. But inside me another one had just started. Later that night, long after Gina had gone to bed, I sat on the couch with Elijah in my arms and opened the old shoebox I'd brought from Mama's house. I'd been too scared to go through it all until now. Buried under drawings and ripped diary pages, I found something I hadn't noticed before. An envelope. No stamp. No name. Just one line on the front in faded ink. "To the girl who was never supposed to remember." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't open it. Not yet. As some truths need time to unfold. But whatever was inside that envelope, it wasn't just about my past. It was about my future. And I wasn't running anymore. I didn't sleep. Not because I wasn't tired, I was exhausted actually. But that envelope sat like a weight on the little table by the couch, humming with a quiet, dangerous energy. To the girl who was never supposed to remember. It was addressed to a version of me that never got to grow up. A girl with questions no one would answer. A child silenced, ignored, reshaped to fit into a lie. And now someone who knew, wanted to crack it open. By the time Elijah stirred in the crib just after dawn, I had made up my mind. I waited until he was fed and calm. I placed him in his bouncer by the couch and sat in front of the envelope like it was a confession booth. My fingers trembled as I slid it open. Inside was a single folded piece of paper and a Polaroid photo. I looked at the photo first. It was the same man. The one from the picture on the porch. The one with his arm around my 6-year-old self. Only this time he was alone. He looked slightly older, maybe in his late 30s. Standing by a rusted pickup in front of a sign that read, Martin's Auto Shop, Green Hollow. Green Hollow? Never heard of it. I turned the paper over. It was a handwritten note. Carefully penned. Not rushed. Someone had meant every word. Seraphine, I tried to see you once. You were maybe 8. Your mother threatened me. Said she'd tell the courts things that would make me disappear for good. I don't know what she told you, if anything. But I never stopped thinking about you. Not for one day. I was young and scared and stupid, but I didn't walk away, I was pushed. I've always lived in Green Hollow. Still work at the shop. I never thought I'd get a chance to tell you the truth. If you want it, I'm here. D. No full name. Just an initial. But that didn't matter. My heart was pounding too hard to think straight. I wasn't just abandoned by my mother. I was stolen from someone else. I didn't cry. That surprised me. Maybe I'd cried so much these last few weeks, over the betrayal, the fear, the loneliness, that my well had finally run dry. But inside, something tectonic shifted. My mother hadn't just lied. She had erased someone. Cut an entire half of my life out like it was nothing. And now, sitting in this small borrowed house holding a baby she tried to erase too, I saw the pattern. Clear as day. She didn't just control people. She erased them when they stopped serving her. I called Gina at work. I told her everything. About the letter. The photos. The name Green Hollow. Everything I'd kept buried under my silence. She didn't freak out. Didn't tell me I was being dramatic. She just said, "Hey, so what do you want to do?" And that was the first time in a long time someone asked me that, like I had a choice. I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. That night, I laid Elijah on my chest and looked up Green Hollow on my phone. Small town. 2 counties over. Barely on the map. Population just under 7,000. 1 gas station. 1 post office. No social services office. But they had a diner, a hardware store, and apparently a car repair place called Martin's Auto. It was real. He was real. I scrolled through the page for the shop. No employee photos. But one grainy picture showed a tall man in a denim jacket working under a hood. His face was shadowed. Still, something in my gut told me it was him. But here's the thing. I couldn't just go. I had no car. No money for a trip 2 counties over. No guarantees. No way to know if it was a trap or some elaborate setup from my family to lure me into something worse. I also had Elijah. I wouldn't risk him. Not for anyone. Not even for the truth. So I made a plan. If he really wanted to see me, if he really was my father, then he would have to meet me on my terms. I used Gina's landline the next morning. Called the shop. A woman answered. I asked for D. She paused, then called out, "Hey Danny, line 2. My heart stopped. Danny. That was it. That was the name Mama never said. He got on the line. His voice was deeper than I expected, rough like gravel. Martin's Auto. I swallowed. Hi. You left a letter. For someone named Seraphine. Silence. Then, Seraphine? Are you? I'm her, I said. I'm me. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 20 years. I wasn't sure you'd ever call, he said quietly. Yeah, I whispered. Neither was I. When I hung up the phone, I just sat there. Still holding the receiver like I was waiting for it to speak again. He sounded real. Not desperate or dramatic. Just careful. Like someone holding a glass heart that had been cracked before. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like someone's mistake. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I'd been someone's loss. I sat on Gina's front steps with Elijah curled against my chest, his tiny fist grabbing the chain around my neck. The breeze was warm that morning, the kind that whispered change even when nothing around you looked different yet. I hadn't told Gina what happened on the call. Not yet. I needed to sit with it first. Let it settle in my body like a truth I didn't have to prove. When she got home from her shift that evening, I didn't even need to explain. She took one look at me, raised an eyebrow and said, "So? Are we taking a trip or what?" "We?" asked, surprised. She tossed her bag on the chair. "You think I'm letting you drag a baby into the middle of nowhere to meet a maybe dad alone? Girl, I watch documentaries. This is how people end up on missing posters." I burst out laughing. And God, it felt so good to laugh. Real belly-deep laughter. The kind I hadn't felt since before my mother's voice was the only one in my head. Okay, I said, still smiling. We're going. We planned it over takeout and baby wipes. Gina offered to drive. Her cousin owed her a favor and had a spare car she could borrow. We'd go on a Sunday, the shop would be closed, and we'd meet him at a public diner in the center of Green Hollow. No surprises. No backroads. I'd even sent him a message to confirm everything in writing. I didn't tell him I was bringing someone. He didn't ask. All he said was, "I'll be there." The morning of the trip I packed light. A bottle, a few changes of clothes for Elijah, and that picture of me with Danny from years ago, just in case my memory tried to gaslight me again. I was nervous. Not jittery nervous. Heart-deep nervous. Like standing on the edge of a cliff and knowing that whatever's on the other side could either heal you or break you worse. Gina noticed. "You don't have to do this," she said as she drove, eyes focused on the long stretch of road ahead. "I know," I said. "But I think I want to." Green Hollow wasn't even on GPS until we were almost in it. The place looked like a page out of an old photo album. Single stoplight kind of town. Houses that leaned with age. Kids riding rusty bikes on cracked sidewalks. Everyone waving at everyone like it was a rule. The diner sat on the corner of Main and Cedar. It was quiet except for the soft clinking of silverware and a few regulars reading newspapers like it was still 1994. We walked in, and I saw him. He was sitting in a booth by the window, staring at his coffee like it might tell him what to say. Same denim jacket. Same strong, weathered face. His hair had gone mostly gray around the temples, but he still looked like the man in the picture. I stood there frozen, clutching Elijah tight to my chest. Then he looked up and saw me. His eyes widened, not in shock but like something sacred had just walked into the room. Fully he stood, and I saw his hands tremble. "Seraphine?" he asked, voice rough with something deeper than emotion. I nodded. He didn't rush me. Didn't come too close. Just waited. I slid into the booth opposite him. Gina stood close, like a quiet shadow behind me. I introduced her. He nodded grateful. Then I looked at him, really looked, and whispered, "Why now?" He swallowed hard. "I didn't know where you were," he said. "Your mom. She made sure of that. I tried once. Thought about courts. But I didn't have money, didn't know my rights. I was barely 20. He told me you'd forget me. That you were better off." He looked down at Elijah, who was staring back at him with those big round eyes. "But you never forgot," I said quietly. He shook his head. "Never." We sat in silence for a while. Not awkward. Just full. Then he said something that cracked something open in me. "I didn't come here to fix the past. I just wanted you to know it wasn't your fault." I didn't cry right away. That came later. When we got back in the car and Elijah fell asleep in the back seat and Gina squeezed my hand and said, "Well, that was a lot." Yeah, it was. But it was also the first time in my life someone showed up and didn't leave. I don't know what comes next with Danny. He's not trying to be a hero. Not swooping in with answers or money or promises. But he's there. And right now that's enough. When we got back to the city, everything felt quieter. Not because the noise had stopped. Gina's neighborhood was still full of honking cars, distant sirens, and that neighbor who played jazz at the weirdest hours. But inside me there was this hush. A space that had been screaming for answers had finally been handed one. Danny wasn't perfect. He wasn't some savior with a golden key to unlock a better life. But he was real. He showed up. He looked at Elijah like he mattered. Like I mattered. And that did something to me. It didn't erase everything my mother had done or all the damage from the years of silence and bruised memories, but it reminded me I had not imagined the good parts. The warm smile. The safe hands. The man who twirled me around in a plastic kiddie pool when I was 4 and called me his little star. He was real. And I'd found him. The next few days passed in a strange, delicate calm. Gina went back to the shop. I started thinking about maybe picking up shifts again somewhere. Though no one was eager to hire a girl with no ID and a baby on her hip. So I was thinking forward. That was new. Danny sent a couple of texts, checking in but not crowding me. We made loose plans to meet again, this time with him bringing old photos, maybe even one of his sisters who remembered me from when I was little. It almost felt like hope. Fragile but possible. But of course the moment I let my guard down, the past came knocking. It was a Thursday evening. I remember because Gina had taken Elijah for a walk around the block so I could nap. I just started to drift off when… Knock knock knock. Not a casual knock. Not the kind a neighbor gives when they need sugar. This one was sharp. Measured. Almost official. I froze. 3 more knocks. Firm. Impatient. I peeked through the front window. My stomach dropped. It wasn't a neighbor. It was her. My mother. Standing on Gina's porch like she owned it. In a crisp beige coat like this was some business meeting and not a confrontation I never wanted. She had that same tight expression I'd seen too many times. 1 part polished, 2 parts venom. I backed away from the window instinctively. My pulse pounded in my ears. How did she find me? Why was she here? Before I could decide what to do, Gina turned the corner with Elijah in his stroller. I saw it happen like slow motion. The way my mom's head turned, her lips parting just slightly as her eyes locked onto Gina. And then the baby. My baby. Gina's face tensed. She looked from the stranger on the porch to me behind the window. He knew. Something wasn't right. I opened the door just enough to step out. Leave, I said before she could speak. Her smile was thin. So this is where you've been hiding. Not hiding, I snapped. Living. Her gaze flicked toward Elijah again, who had started fussing in his stroller. Is that? No, I said too quickly. You don't get to ask about him. Gina stepped beside me, not saying anything but her presence loud with warning. My mother's smile never dropped, but her voice turned cold. You think you're safe out here? With this setup? You think running off and playing mother makes you untouchable? I am a mother, I said through clenched teeth. Oh, honey. She stepped closer. Gina moved too, closer to me. My mother's eyes sharpened. You're still my daughter, Seraphine. And that means I still have a say. I laughed. A bitter, hollow laugh. You gave up your say the night you left my baby in a storm. Her expression didn't flinch. But something shifted in her eyes. Calculation. That was the problem with my mother. Her words were weapons, but her silence? That was where the real damage lived. I came to give you a warning, she said softly, now so close I could smell her perfume, familiar and nauseating. There are people watching you. You're making moves. Court filings, lawyers. You really want to dig up all that mess? I didn't respond. I suggest, she continued, you come home before this gets uglier than it already is. That word. Home. She said it like it was still a place I belonged to. I stepped back. Gina pushed the stroller slowly behind her, like a shield between us and the past. You've got nothing on me, I said quietly. And you know it. She stared at me for a long moment, then leaned in and whispered, you'd be surprised what I can make true. She left without another word. I didn't cry. Not then. But that night, after Elijah was asleep, I sat on the bathroom floor and let every bone-deep fear crawl out of me. She knew where I was. And if she'd shown up, it meant she wasn't backing down. It also meant the legal stuff I'd started, the filings, the custody paperwork, had rattled something. Which meant I was on the right path. But it also meant the fight was officially on. I used to think courtrooms were only for people who did something wrong. I didn't realize they were also built for people like me. People who were just trying to be heard. People who were tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of being treated like a ghost in their own story. The morning of the hearing I didn't feel brave. I felt sick. Gina drove me downtown, her car packed with snacks for Elijah and folders full of every paper we'd managed to gather over the past few weeks. Doctor records, witness letters, even a statement from Danny. When we got to the courthouse steps, I hesitated. Gina looked over at me and said, "You've already survived worse than this. Walk in there like you know that." And I did. Sort of. Inside, the courtroom was cold and too bright. Everything echoed. My shoes felt loud on the tile floor. I had Elijah in my arms, bundled up in his little hoodie, his eyes darting around like he could feel the tension too. My mother sat across from me with a smug smile and a high-priced lawyer at her side. No sign of my sister. I didn't speak to her. I didn't need to. She wasn't here to see me. She was here to win. The judge was a middle-aged woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that didn't flinch. She read over the documents quietly, then looked at me and said, "Miss Hart, I see you've filed for full parental custody with restraining provisions against your biological mother. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you have evidence to support these claims?" I nodded. Gina handed over our packet, and the room went quiet as the judge flipped through the pages. Photos, medical records, testimonies, even a handwritten letter from Marlon, who'd had to work that day but insisted on supporting me however he could. Then came the part one was dreading. My turn to speak. I stood. My knees trembled. Elijah squirmed in my arms. Your Honor, I began, I didn't come here to get revenge. I came here to protect my son. My mother's lawyer started to object, but the judge held up a hand. Go on. I took a breath. I was raised in a home where love was conditional, where silence was survival, where mistakes were punished, not corrected. My mother, I swallowed, she abandoned me when I was at my lowest. I nearly died in that storm. My baby could have died. And now she wants to pretend that didn't happen. I felt the tears rising, but I didn't let them fall. I'm not perfect, I said. But I've been doing everything I can to build a life for my son. One where he knows he's wanted. Where he's safe. I don't want her money. I don't want her approval. I just want to be left alone to raise my child in peace. The judge looked down for a moment. Then up again. And then she turned to my mother. Do you dispute the facts in this filing? She asked. My mother leaned forward and smiled. My daughter is confused. Emotional. She's made up these stories because she's struggling and needs help. I'm simply trying to step in before she spirals. The judge nodded slowly, then looked at me again. And for one terrifying second I thought I'd lose. But then the gavel came down. The court finds in favor of Seraphine Hart. Full custody awarded. All visitation rights revoked. A protective order will be granted effective immediately. I didn't even hear the rest. It was like my body let go of a weight I didn't know I'd been carrying. My knees almost buckled. Gina caught me. My mother stood in stunned silence, blinking like she'd just been slapped with air. No dramatic exit. No threats. Just stunned. It was done. I won. Outside the courthouse I stood on the steps and finally let myself breathe. Elijah giggled in my arms, blissfully unaware that his future had just changed. Gina wiped tears from her cheeks and said, You did it. No, I corrected. We did. Later that night I sat on Gina's couch, Elijah sleeping on my chest, and thought about everything. Danny had texted to say he was proud of me. Marlon had called and left a voicemail saying he'd be by soon with pizza to celebrate. Me. I felt lighter. Not fixed. Not healed. But free. I'd broken the cycle. I wasn't going back. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my story, don't forget to like and hit subscribe. You will also enjoy other stories on AJ Family Drama. Until next time, bye.